Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today I'm very excited to talk to you about Thymesia. If you've been living under a rock like me apparently, you may have missed this very promising looking Souls-like coming from Team 17 of all people, the guys who made that extremely successful Worms series that was one of my favorites from my childhood. They're working with Overborder Studio, an indie dev team from Taiwan, to publish this game, which is very Bloodborne-esque, a Souls-like game that has a really intriguing world, the story and gameplay loop that look really exciting. I'm ready to try myself. It's officially an action RPG in a kingdom ruined by the plague, and we play a character who can harness that plague as an almost physical weapon in many shapes and sizes. Thymesia feels like a great one to talk about here because, we're all about fighting monsters, and Thymesia is full of them. At a surface level, you can tell it is an inspired creation. I saw a funny comment about how the devs must have got tired for waiting on Bloodborne 2 and just decided to make their own version. However, obviously, this is not just some devs make Bloodborne again. It is a similar theme, but totally different world and story, and it looks awesome. So let's talk about everything we know for Thymesia. We'll ease ourselves in with the concept then, the world and its setting. This once thriving kingdom is now infested with monsters, and we play the quote mysterious character Corvus, who's not only trying to find out why, but put an end to the plague that plagues this place. It's said that not only did plague sweep through the land, but also many other diseases. While the country tried countless methods to overcome it, only one kingdom found any success. That was through the power of alchemy, and it was able to produce the first antibodies to fight the disease and grant the first immunities, which also enhanced people's natural abilities. Quickly, this kingdom became the most powerful in the world, while everyone else desperately needed their help to survive, and decades on, there was an attempt to neutralize their use of alchemy, maybe to destroy or damage the kingdom's dominance. Big shock, it didn't go well. Those once saved by the alchemy were then mutated into monsters by it, and then began destroying anything and everything in their path. We are then left with Corvus, our character, who has lost his memory. In his attempt to recover his lost memories and piece together the truth of what actually happened here, we'll learn what's really going on, which apparently leaves us to a choice: how we will choose to deal with the plague. Will we let this kingdom fall or vanquish the source of all of its misery? So we've got at very least two endings to choose between, which sounds cool enough, but I do hope this choice happens earlier than right at the end of the game though. I think it would be cool if we could make this choice maybe halfway through the game or something, and then you go on to deal with the consequences of that choice, maybe leading into different experiences based on what you choose. I'm definitely running away with the concept of that than what we actually know, but I like when my choices have impact on the gameplay. So that's the story and setting. I think it's pretty cool. Let's talk about some gameplay details. As described by the devs, Thymesia will not be for the faint of heart. They're going to throw some horrific monsters at us that shouldn't just be scary to face visually, but are actually meant to be deadly and very challenging. Fortunately, Corvus is not a normal human. They describe him as a half-human, half-raven, which is an interesting combination, because apparently his half-raven side gives him superpowers or something. When in raven mode, you have this superhuman agility and some interesting magical powers, alongside the various weapons he makes use of. The dual-wielded saber and dagger, or the quote, raptor-like claws and feather when in raven mode. These appear to be his own weapons of choice, but those are enhanced by the magical abilities Corvus possesses in regards to the plague. This power is actually inspired by the plague doctors of medieval times. The macabre or bloodletting led to this combat design. Anytime Corvus deals damage to an enemy, they'll sort of leak out some energy, and if you can quickly steal that by attacking with your claw, you can then use that stolen energy in some kind of way. As you see, it fills the icon at the bottom left, and in this case, a halberd appears. I'm not certain as to why he got a halberd, but I'm pretty sure it's because that enemy was using one. With that stolen power, you can then summon these spectral apparent plague weapons to use for various purposes. And we've seen a solid selection of plague weapons in the trailers so far. The halberd is obviously used for these high impact damaging hits on one target, the scythe is great for AoE swings, and then you got things like the super fast daggers, thrown spears, great swords, axes, bows, hammers, and more, all from this one plague summon system. What's particularly cool to me about this system is how it's going to force you to try different weapons and make use of them in different ways, right? Because you only have access to what weapons your enemies have. You're not going to just have whatever you choose always. However, there is actually 2 slots for this, so you could build up the resource with some weapons you do like, and then hold on to them for a while to use against, say, a particular set of enemies or maybe a boss. Now, as this is an RPG, there is a classic progression system in place with talent trees and attributes. From the description, we're told that we could improve the parries to enhance your defense, unlock new, more powerful and longer combos to attack with, or perhaps link together different dodges in some different ways. Essentially, that sounds like you have an offense tree, a defensive tree, and a utility tree to explore with different abilities and passives tied into each. Depending on what playstyle you want to go with, you can choose. Pretty standard conceptually, I think, but hopefully they find a way to make that a bit more unique and interesting in practice. After all, it doesn't need to be a totally new concept, a talent tree, just be fun to engage with. They say that the skill trees combined with the plague weapon abilities should lead us to varied gameplay styles from one player to another, and that's a good concept that I hope is real for, good replayability. Otherwise, it appears that we will continuously level our character up and choose between these three main attributes that affect our character's stats. Strength for physical and plague damage, vitality for health, and plague for your mana and claw damage as well. Very straightforward stuff. Now, what about the release and platforms for this game? You may already know that this game was actually planned for early December and has since been delayed into a 2022 release. They explained that they didn't want to release the game before it was in its best possible state, and to do that, they needed more time. This continues the trend of damn near every game delaying its original release since the start of COVID, and as per usual, I agree it is for the best and usually results in the better game, right? But I do really look forward to when games aren't basically delayed every time. I'm at the point where I just don't trust any release dates anymore. On the bright side though, it's coming to multiple platforms, so we'll see it release on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, so most of us should have the opportunity to play it. But that's all the public and official information I can find. Let's go into what I think. Personally, I really like the look of this game. Bloodborne was my favorite solo IP from Software, and was actually my first experience with Eldritch Horror. Thymesia hits similar beats, but goes a totally different path with this interesting magic and inherent gameplay variety that looks really cool. Something not really mentioned in the official information is how much this game seems to be based on well-timed parries alongside evasion. Kind of like how Sekiro demanded less blocking and more parrying with its posture system, but there's literally no block ever seen, so parrying seems all the more important, just like Bloodborne. Something smart to include then is how they have these critical attacks in their game. These are unparable attacks that must be interrupted by like a feather throw in a super tight reaction window. So you're always looking at your enemy looking for, do I need to parry? Is it a feather interrupt? Or am I going to do a well-timed evade? Depending on what the enemy's doing, you need to react on the fly. And then punish the enemy after hopefully success with a wide variety of plague attacks and combos. So at the core, the gameplay seems solid to me. The weight looks right, the movement's smooth. I really like this combat design. Where it's certainly weaker though is the more shallow sounding RPG systems, which I hope in play work a bit more interesting than they sound. I want to see like a genuine difference in gameplay when I focus on, like offensive build versus evasion build. Overall, I think it should be a promising Souls-like from an indie team of all things. It's looking good. I can tell that I'm going to enjoy playing it. And having never heard of Overborder Studios before, I hope that this is a good release for them so they can go on to make more with bigger budgets. But what do you think? Is Thymesia a promising Souls-like or not unique enough? I'd love to see some proper footage of some boss fights since we barely saw any of that, and that often makes or breaks these games. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.